Hello guys, how are you? Our topic today is about React.js, and we'll be talking about components. And eventually, we'll first be able to transfer immediately to use how to use the props, and we'll of course talk how to apply and how to apply the React.js CSS styling inside the program. So this time around, we'll of course will be using not of course the actual program of React.js by means of the npm, but we'll be using the CDN, or what we call the content delivery network. And of course, we will be using the Babel compiler inside the React.js. So what is a component? I mean, what is, okay, let's make this bigger. So what is a component in React.js? So a component is like a function, and we have two types of components in React. One is, of course, we have the class component. This is how you inherit all functionalities of the code. And of course, number two, we have, of course, the function component. We are using the function component to create arguments by means of props. Props will be passed to the main program of React.js. So we have the class component. The class component, well, we need to create a class. And of course, function component we need to create a functions. By props, this is part of argument. Now, before delving to the main core of the React.js, let us first review about these components. Components is like a function. Okay, so we have to create the functions. We have the built-in functions and we have the customized functions. So the catalyst for this programming is to understand first the JavaScript technology. Like for example, we'll create here the component or a function. Okay, so we'll be using, of course, the JavaScript to make things clear and intuitive for the beginners and, of course, for the seasonal user. Now, this we need to create a program that will return a value. So we start with the function, and then we have the function for value 1, and then we need to provide here, of course, the parameter. Let's say x. So x is a props right here. That's part of creating your properties and, of course, part of the parameters arguments. Okay, parameters. Now we have here the x value, and this is a typical code to create your component using the JavaScript program. Let's say we need to return the value, return x. So we need to say this represents any operands. All right, this represents a number. Now we will, of course, create a program that will call this component in the main program. We assume that this is a class program. Okay, so if we create this program, okay, we need first to let's say constant. Let's say my value equals to 100. Okay, so we have here a constant variable from value that is 100, and we're gonna make a program, or we're gonna make a statement that will call these functions inside the main, or we assume that's the main class component. Okay, how to do that? So it's very simple. So we need to use what console, and then we need to call, of course, this component inside the function, and then of course the return the value that will be printed because this represents a number, and we're gonna call what? My value. That's it. So there you have it. So we have here the 100. So this is your component as a function value, and of course we declare value here as a constant to print this operand inside, of course, this statement. We assume that this is the main program. Okay, to console.log value, my value. Okay, what if we create a program? Okay, just like creating our own what? Creating our own class component. Okay, so we're just comparing this statement so that you will understand better to dive in the abyss of React.js. Okay, how to create a class component? Just like, you know, I'm just creating a simulations or examples by means of the class component using the JavaScript program. And you know, before diving also to React.js, well, of course, you should understand how to use write a function. And this function can be, you know, converted into an ES syntax, or the ECMAScript, ES syntax, the ECMAScript. So if you want to convert this to another functions, we'll just replace this thing. Let's say let value 1 equals 2, and then you put it here. This stands for the parameter, and then we'll open parentheses right here. and we can say return X. They are all the same because in React.js, often you will be using this code using the arrow function. Okay, let us erase this and let us check if this code is correct. So return let value 1 equals to, I think there's something wrong in my program. I will check it first. Okay, this is the error. And well, of course, this is a reminder. If you see the error, don't panic. Let us analyze it first before we continue with our code. And we have here the let value plus 1. Okay, so this is the error. All right. So the purpose of this is to create the functions for value 1. At the same time, we have here the props or the parameter here as part of arguments and of course expression. And this represents an operand to print the value of 100. When I restore to my value, so if we run this program, there you have it. So we have the 100. So this is the main program for that. So we need the next part is to create our own class component. So this is not a class component, but a class program using the OOP. Most of the time, you'll be encountering, of course, this type of expressions and syntax in your React.js program. Let's say I want to create a class here, class, and then tips data. Okay, so this is the class program. Now, in React.js, of course, you use the class program like this one. Then the name of your React program, and of course, we have here to use the extents, and then we have here the React component, React, and then you have here the components. Okay, so this syntax for the React.js. But here, of course, this is imperative that we learn this first before jumping to the abyss of React.js. So you can still, what you call this, check my previous tutorial in React.js, how to start it, and then how to install it using the npm node package manager of the Node.js, or you can use the content delivery network, or maybe invoking the Babel type of compiler so that you can use it online. Now, here we have the class data, and we need to use the constructor. Okay. So the constructors like, well, of course, that's part of the class. And here we have the constructor for, let's say, num1. Okay, so we have one parameter here. So this point num1 equals to num. Remember about your OOP. You can still visit my OOP tutorial here in my channel in YouTube. So we have only what this num and num1. So what's next is we need to create here, of course, our let's say functions, no, or just like components. Functions or a component, or what we call, of course, the methods. So it's quite important to understand all the things. So again, we have here the class dips data constructor, and we need to print, of course, this any value, and then calling, of course, the functions at the top. So this is the component here. The component name is value1 that represents the operand. Okay. Now what's next is, of course, we're gonna create our, let's say, function here or component here. Okay, component or what we call functions. They are a bit akin, okay? So let's say dips1, and then we have here function. So if we display this function, what will happen is, of course, we can call this function at the top. All right, so we're gonna call the function. So console, say that log, and then we're gonna call, of course, the function at the top. That's value1. And what's next? So we have the value1 there. And then what's next? So the next part is, of course, to check, of course, the value here at the top. So we need to use this by value. No, not that one. This parameter right here. So value1 is the name of the function or component at the top. This will return any operands or any numbers. So value1 will, of course, be print the value1. Same time, the value1 what? Parameters that present our own operand. So our operand would be here the num1. Okay, so we have the properties for num1. This point num1. Okay, that's it. And after that, all right, let's smoothly. After that, what will happen? So we have the code here, and then we will use this code to display this value. And we have already invoked force the function at top. So this is the component inside the main class of the code. So if we display this, okay, let us first construct the object. So let's say data2 equals to new. This is the constructor for that. So the constructor is the name of the class where we have here the dips data, and And then we have to, but of course, declare any number to return a number, because now the purpose of this is to use a value in our main class. And at the same time, this value will be called by this method, this one, and we will call the component at the top. So this is the component to display, of course, the value that will be presented here in the constructor. Okay, now let us, we have already instantiated, of course, the data. To instantiated means we created, of course, the value to the parent class and created our child. So this is the child component and this is the main component. Okay, now let us, print those things. Console.log, and then we have here data2, and then of course now since data2 have already inherited all these uh, field members of the dips underscore data, we can call now the methods. This one, dips one. So we call dips one. So what's the purpose of this dips one? It's just like a method, a component that will display the value of this parameter. And the purpose of value one is to represent as a function or as a component that will return any value or appearance in the main program. So I put 110 here, and let's check what will happen. So there you have it. The answer is 10. So that's the purpose of this code. I mean, let's start first with the ECMAScript, creating the component. At the same time, using, of course, we can use this part of the JSX, or what you call the JavaScript expression. That's right there, JavaScript expression. Okay, this is your JavaScript expression. This can be fused inside, of course, your component using the elements. And inside the elements, we have the attributes and the properties. So this part will, of course, this is part now of your PC component programming. And we have the props here. The props is just like using, of course, the parameters inside the JavaScript program. And we use the ECMAScript right here. And we have created our main class component right here. We just, doing the simulations of using OOP. And we have the constructor as a reserved word to print this num1. This num1, it will represents any number that will be, a reference to this function, or vice versa, a function referencing to this value. And we instantiated, of course, our program here, the data2, that will be the child of this main component. And we call, of course, the child of this main component so that we can, of course, access the method of dips1 under the main component, the mother component named as dips underscore data. So, okay, so this is it. Now we will proceed now to React.js. Okay, in the previous tutorial, I show you how to install the Node.js. At the same time, I also demonstrate to you how to use, of course, the React.js. So in this case, we'll be using the CDN, and of course, we have the Babel script compiler of JavaScript. So you have to want to start your CDN. You can use any online editor, and in my case, I'm using the W3 Schools here. Now it's quite simple. Let's start first. For example, we'll create our own components. Our components is like a functions, wherein, of course, you can pass parameter within the main program. So we have two types of components. We have the class and we have the function component. So let us create first, of course, this simple component, a function component. And most of the time, we'll be using the component. So this is the part of series of our React.js tutorial. Now let's start. So we have here doc type, and then we have the HTML. Next we have the HTML right here, and of course you can use the head for other purposes. You can use, of course, the internal cascading style sheets here, and among other things. Now let's start. Now you have here, of course, the doc type. Okay. You have the doc type right here. Let us fix this. Doc type. At the same time, of course, let us provide the title. Unfolding the React JS components and styling. All right. So here we can use for styling. This is only the option for our program here. So we can put here first the CSS, CSS. But our main concern is to create a component. Okay, let's go here. So if you want to create your component, of course, we need first to use the CDN or the library of our React.js. How to do that? So let's go in your W3 schools. That's very easy. And you go to get started and you copy this one. Okay, Control C and go back to our editor here, and then you paste it here. So that's it. And after that, what will happen? So this is where we start our first program in Node.js. So to start the program in Node.js, since we have already this library, we will infuse path script, control pass. We can use script type, okay, text, and then Babel. So what does it mean? We need to say, of course, we will write on to the React.js component using, of course, the content delivery network using this thing. Okay, so first thing first, we need to write our function for the Node.js. So there are different ways how to write a function. We can use the vintage statement by using this function statement, or we can use, of course, the ECMAScript using the left x equals 2, and then, of course, name of the function. So this is the name of the function. Now let us write a function here. Let's say we'd like to write a function. Let's say hello. So we need to write it in capital letter. And because React.js is extremely stern when it comes to camel case. We have here the hello word. Okay. And then let's check here, window dot alert. Then let's say hello React.js. So this is part of the first component. Okay. This is your component. This could be a child or a mother component. All right. So we have the component right here. We will what you call this runs component, and at the same time we will create another function for this component. Let's say function up. All right. And we start it right here. So what's the purpose of this? This is now the calling program for this component. Okay, just like you're creating your Java programming, and of course you have the functions and methods, and you instantiate the program in the main class to call those methods and the field members of the class. The same thing also in JavaScript. So let us start now to use this return value. What's the purpose of this? This is where we call, of course, the elements, and of course call the comment at the top. Let's say we need to create, program that will write a button for this component. Okay, so if you have a basic perception in JavaScript, you can understand what the meaning of the purpose of button. So unclick, be sure that this is correct. Okay, if you put this thing, this won't activate it. So you need to follow the exact communication. So how to call the component in JavaScript? So in JavaScript, how to call the component in React.js rather? So the name of the component is hello, therefore we're gonna use the open and close parentheses. So that's how you use the components. This is the syntax in hello. Okay, and then you type here, of course, the name of the value of your button. Same thing with JavaScript. Okay, let's say a click here, and then we end up with our button. Okay, that's it. So from here, of course, we need to put the semicolon because this is an unfinished value for the other program. Now, next is to run this program. If you want to run this program, we need to put, of course, the script here, and we need to use, of course, the HTML, and we have here the body. Of course, next is, of course, what happened. Let's just go back to our previous program. This is where we use the wheel pattern or code. Now this is a bit longer. And the purpose of this container at the top is just to point to the ID of your main program. That's the main ID. And we create here, of course, there's a variable right here, constant variable, to create the container. Okay, what's that container? So this contains this contain your ID, where you place the output, and then within there, of course, the main function or the main component, that's the hello word. But in our case, we can evade this thing. But again, let us use this in our main program. Let us try it. Okay. Now to call this program, okay. To call this program in our main program, okay, we need to paste this thing, and then we need to use the container. And we have here at the top, of course, we haven't yet fuse here our program for for uh, for the output. I mean, okay. So let us put it here. So we have here the body. Okay. We have here, of course, the body. And we're going to put here, of course, the ID. ID equals to, let's say, let's use the element here. H3 ID equals to. So what's the ID here? So the ID is my div. Okay, let us copy this thing. Oops, sorry. Control C. Then we follow, of course, the ID here. And then H3. So this is where we will fuse the output of the program. Okay. Now, what will happen here is we need to tweak it down. So container is the variable here that um, points to the mydiv ID, and we have here the root react dom create root container, and we're gonna change this component because this is part of the component. So we need to change this to up. Now the question is, why is it that I'm using the up, not the hello component? Because for one thing, it's just like your function, and we need to call it up inside the main program. So the up is our main program. So this will serve as your what? Mother component. Okay, let us run the program. Okay, I think it's a problem in the program. Okay, here you come. So we have here the click me, and we have here the hello react.js. So that's the answer. So every time that we click the hello, click the component here uh, of hello, it will display hello react.js. So there you have it. So we have here the button as part of our what? Of our document object model. And at the same time, it's totally different because in JavaScript we don't put, of course, the open and close parentheses for our component, but of course directly call it using the functions and of course the open and close parentheses with double quotation. So in JavaScript, you call this thing using the button on click. Then you put here what? Hello world. That's the JavaScript. Okay. Now in React.js, you are using what? The open and close parentheses. Okay, let us put here, of course, the div function, the div element. So the purpose of that is, of course, this is where we will display different types of elements in the program. Okay, when we click it here, hello React.js. So let us add more. Like for example, we will call another component. Okay, so the purpose of this component is to ask questions. So function, let's say asked, capital letter. Okay, and then let's say we have here the variable at the top. So this is this is where you create, of course, the private variable because this is part of the ask program. But again, one of the disadvantages of this is if you are calling, of course, the private variable to the main program, it won't come out. So therefore, if you have a plan to display this variable in a public, what you call this premise of your code, then you need to provide here the, let's say, let, okay, value1 equals to 0. Okay, let us. Our purpose is to ask a number here. So value1 equals to window prompt enter a number. Okay, let us run the program. If you run the program here, of course, nothing's happened because we haven't yet called this component. So we have two components right now. We have the value, we have the hello, and of course we have the ask. How are we going to use ask in the components by components? So here, of course, we can fuse it here, the down button. And if you want to call the functions here, okay, how to call the functions within the functions or how to call the component with the component. So you better use, of course, the greater symbol and then ask. And then after that, of course, you put, of course, the slash symbol. That's how you do it. This is how you call component by component. Run the program. So here you have it, enter a number. So meaning to say the first thing that for the FTS called is to automate the process wherein, of course, the ask was called before the button. Okay, I'll enter here 10, and then that's it. If I click this one, hello React. So therefore, well, first component in this program is asked. Second component is hello, and this is the mother component. So this is the source code for that. It's quite easy. Of course, it has what we have discussed. All you have to do is if you want to create a React.js program using the CDN, well, of course, you need to follow this up. All right. And then you go to W3 schools. And then you start now to create your ID at the top because this is where we put the output. The question right now is, What if I want to put the name at the top? Before we can put a title here, H1, and then of course React unfolding the React JS component. And then we have the H2 right here. And same time, you can also create your ID here as part of the attribute. And then you call, let's say, style, internal, style sheets, equals to, and color, then let's say yellow. Okay, so if you want to create your styles, well, of course, it's quite simple. So there are different types of styling cascading style sheets. You can go out the external file. At the same time, you can create the default types of styling and, of course, the internal type of styling. So this is how you create your styling using the open brace and close brace. If you want to run this program, okay, enter a number, and you have here, of course, unfolding the React.js component. Okay, please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Thanks so much for watching.